Hello and welcome back to the channel. This is Hambone here, and in today's video we're going to be talking about my beginner's guide, a quick overview I guess of what there is going on in Albion Online, because this is a massive game and you're going to be very confused when you roll off Tutorial Island. You're not going to know what to do, so I'm going to try and help explain some of the parts of the game for you so that you don't get so confused. First thing let's talk about is let's talk about your gear. So essentially in this game, it's not like other MMOs where you have to buy a set or wear a certain set of gear. You can just use and mix and match whatever gear that you want to use for your character at that given time. For instance, I've just equipped a cloth helmet. So this is just my helmet slot. There's a cloth helmet, a leather chest piece, and plate shoes, just to kind of showcase what you can do with the build system in this game and mix and match. And then those weapons and items, like here is your armor. So your slots, all of your cooldowns, all of your abilities are based off of what armor you're wearing and what weapon you're using. I'm using a one-handed curse staff. It's called the life curse staff here. So these three abilities, the Q, W, and E, come from the weapon. And then the other three abilities, R, D, and F, come from your armor equipped. So R is your chest piece, D is your helmet, and F is your boots, as you can sort of see there. And then you of course have potions and food. But overall, really simple system, not too much to it. Every weapon has a selection of skills, so you can select which ones you want. I don't really have the highest spec in cursed weapons. I'm just trying out some sort of build here to counterdict some of the meta, but we'll get into that later. But you can select these different abilities. Every weapon has a different selection of abilities. Same with the chest pieces, same with the helmet, same with the boots, and so on. Everything has its own unique abilities. And the best thing to do really for this game is to search up builds. So like say, well, what's a good build for this? Google it. That's the best way to do it. Look at YouTube videos, etc. But like you can see that everything has its own. You look at bows. They've got a big selection. This is another cloth helmet. Here's a leather. Wait a minute. No, wrong one. Leather. This one's leather, yeah. A leather hood, it has different abilities. Everything has different abilities. And so what you're going to want to do is select something that fits the playstyle you want. And you can look here, this is a Destiny board. It can be found by pressing B. This is where you find all the different weapon classes in the game, as well as your fame in those, your level in those. You find all the different armor classes, like here's cloth armor, all that sort of stuff. All your crafting is done, like here down this way is food, potion making, food crafting, like cooking. Farming is right here. This is your gatherings area. Over here is your refining, okay? And then you got crafting. All this around through here is crafting spec. And the main thing you're going to focus on as a beginner is you might be worried about your gathering because that's how you're going to make a lot of your money. I recommend fishing. Fishing is easy to level up. It levels up quickly, and you can make decent money. Early on, it's an easy one. You can do fishing in any of the cities. You don't have to worry about what city you're in. You can do fishing pretty much anywhere. So fishing is a good one to make some nice little pocket money. The main levels you're going to want to be focused on, though, is you're going to want to try and fame up some of these, like get your hunter to at least journeyman, cloth to journeyman, all that, so you can use all these different all these different weapon lines that they lead to. Like hunter line leads to bows, leads to spears, nature staffs, daggers, quarterstaffs, and torches. So all this different stuff you can fame up just by getting started on. You have to start the hunter line first, though. So just a quick note to see. You can see you start as a trainee fighter, you get this one, the tutorial, and then you go up from there. But basically what you want to do is once you get started, you want to try and level up this Reaver level, because the Reaver level allows you to kill stronger enemies, as you can see here. Like you start at with the Journeyman Reaver, that's the easy one. Lets you kill tier 3 enemies, whereas your tier 4 is Adept Reaver, and then 5 is Master, and so on and so forth. But you want to get this leveled up, or that's 6, sorry, 5 is Expert. But you want to get this leveled up as quickly as possible, because if you don't have it leveled up and you go fight tier 6 enemies, let's say you're here at tier 5, and you go fight tier 6 enemies, you're not going to do as much damage. You can see here you're like 60% lower damage on those. So basically, you won't be able to fight anything above the Reaver level. So you're going to want to level that up as quickly as you can, and that's just by getting fame in any sort of combat activity. 269,000 is really easy to get to. Now you want to also be focused on leveling up, and this will level up over time as well, your adventurer level, because that denotes what level of cape you can wear, what level of bag you can wear, and what mounts you can use. So if you see here, once you get tier 4, you unlock all of these different capes, you unlock these different mounts. Tier 5, it gets even more mounts and stuff. So you just got to try and level this up. Again, this is just general fame, but you want to try to get to, like elders as quick as possible. And it takes like 1 million something, if I remember right. 6.5 million. You want to get there as quick as you can. Maybe not the adventurer level. That one takes quite a bit. I think it takes twice as much as Reaver. You really want to get Elder Reaver. That way you're not locked out of any content based off of how you're, what level you are. So there you go. Elder Reaver, 3.2 million. So once you get there, then you are essentially good to go for all forms of content in the game as far as fighting the enemies. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the map. The map here, as you can see, this is the overall map. There are 5 cities on this map that are like the main cities that people play in. And then there's Carleon, which is also another one of the big cities. But the 5 major cities that I'm talking about are Bridgewatch, Lyndhurst, Martlock, and Thetford, and Fort Sterling. So these 5 cities, this is where you're going to start. So what you're going to do once you get off of Tutorial Island, which is over here, you never go there again. You're going to select what biome essentially you want to start in, and you're going to start here in one of these. So this is Highland Cross that leads to Martlock, and then like if we go down here to Bridgewatch, then you got Steps Cross, which leads up to Bridgewatch. So those cities, these are like where you're going to start once you get out of Tutorial. And that starts you in a blue zone. So you can see all around this little city, there's blue zones, and that's denoted by this little blue diamond. If you click on it, it says safe region, players cannot attack you. That's essentially what you need to know. You can also learn what resources can be found here by looking at this right here. So the most plentiful resource in these steps is going to be your hides, because that's the area, the steps are the area where hides are plentiful. But if you look here and see on the map, you can see there's yellow zones all around here. And you'll notice that the blue zones only go up to tier 4. That means the highest tier enemies you're going to face in there is tier 4 enemies. All right, well, then you go over here and you see yellow zones. And you go, okay, well, these yellow zones go up to tier 5. And you're correct. Yellow zones are tier 5 zones. However, yellow zones do have opt-in knockdown PvP. So what that means is somebody can flag. So let's just go ahead and hop off here and show you what flagging does. So if I click right here on my name, it changes me to hostile and will allow me to attack other players in PvP regions such as the yellow zone and the red zone. But you lose your, if you see here, my reputation. I have glorious reputation. You lose reputation for killing people in red zones and for knocking them down in yellow zones. Now, if you get to dreaded reputation, which is below minus 20,000, which is not that hard to do, you can't go into any zones except the black zone. Once you get it, nefarious, you can go to yellow zones, and you can't go in the like main cities if you're suspicious. So just a quick thing to note, you're gonna get, you got to watch and manage that. So that's kind of prevents people from just roaming these zones and killing you all the time. But yellow zones are knockdown only PvP. You don't have to worry about those unless you go through an Avalonian portal in a yellow zone. So just watch out for those, because those take you to a black zone. Now, if we go here to the red zones, which you can find, they are tier 6 and tier 7. I think, yeah, there's tier 7. There's tier 6 and tier 7, and they're usually centered around Carleon. So if, like, no matter what city you start in, all right, let's say we're just in Martlock, right? Here's Martlock. You head towards Carleon, you hit red zones. Okay, red zones are all around Carleon. You see here, Carleon's like the biggest of the royal cities. You're going to spend a lot of your time as a beginner in these yellow zones and not really worrying too much about it. Now, what are some activities that we can do as a beginner? Well, first things first, you can, we'll talk about your activities. You can go and participate in faction warfare. You say, what's faction warfare? Well, you flag up as a faction. Like if we want to do Bridgewatch, I'll go ahead and take you to the faction NPC of Bridgewatch real quick. But if we want to flag up for Bridgewatch, you flag up for Bridgewatch as the Bridgewatch faction. And then anything you do in those yellow zones or red zones earns you points towards that faction's point system, towards your faction warfare challenge, which I will pull up here in just a second. Let me get to load it in here. All right, so right here, you got your faction warfare challenge, right? So anything that you do, you get daily rewards. I haven't done it today. But anything that you do gives you points towards these unlocks and gives you points towards things you can purchase through the faction vendor. You can see here which factions are leading, and Bridgewatch is currently in the lead of this season, and how many points you've earned, etc. But anything you do in the yellow zones will get you these faction points. However, the biggest things to get faction points is participating in the captures of these outposts. So right here, if you look on the maps, there's all these outposts, and a lot of times what will happen is there'll be like a big zerg of a certain faction. It'll be 30 or 40 of them going and taking outposts. Like, see here, they're fighting back for this outpost. And yes, this is a blue zone, but faction combat can happen in blue zones. So just note of that. The tier 4 blue zones, you can have faction. They have the little areas that can be captured as well. But it's all knockdown PvP unless you're in the red zone, which if you're faction flagged in the red zone, then someone from an opposing faction can kill you without being hard flagged. So do keep that in mind. But I'll show you the faction NPC real quick, and then we will talk about something else. There we go. This is the faction NPC. They all look the same. You know, they'll have like the flag and the crest of whatever city they're from. And if you hit N and you look on the map, you see this little flag. N, by the way, pulls up your local area map, but you can see this little flag. And that's your faction enlistment. And so you go there to enlist in your faction. Right, so if I go talk to him, I can say, hey, I want to flag up, and I can faction flag here. And then that's where you earn the faction points, which you can spend buying these rewards. And that's how you get those rewards through the faction system. So you're going to want to pay attention to that and do that every chance you get. Do it daily as a new player, because those extra rewards, you know, if you get these chests in here, they're going to have a few thousand silver worth of rewards that you can get that just for essentially for free just by playing the game. You're also going to get some PvP experience, although it's not going to be a huge amount of PvP experience, because faction-based PvP is very, very different from any other PvP in the game, really, except for like ZVZs, which is even still different than those because it'll get you some PvP experience. You'll have some fun doing it. It's kind of crazy to see all these people roaming around all at the same time. And just craziness in the game. Now, another thing you can do as a new player is you can click up here on activities, and you can go down here and select arena. And you can queue up for arenas or ranked arenas. And what you'll basically do is play in these arenas. It's a 5v5, essentially like a MOBA fight, right? And you're going to play these, you can just go in with whatever gear you want. The minimum item power is 700, so you at least need tier 4 gear. And you just roll into the arena and go in and have fight. It's just knockdown PvP, and it's just fun PvP. You get some good, decent little rewards for it, and it's a decent amount of silver. You're going to want to do that daily as a new player as well, unless you just don't like arenas. And let's see, what else can we talk about now? I want to go ahead and find some dungeons, so I'll see you in a second, and I'll explain how dungeons work in the game. Alright, so first things first, this is what's called a static dungeon. So you can see a static dungeon on your map here, or I can pull up the big one to make it easier. You can see a static dungeon on your map. That's always in the same place, right? So you roll in here, and you fight the bosses, and they get empowered over time the more that they're not killed, so you get more fame for killing those. But static dungeons are usually done a group. There are some solo builds you can do to solo the static dungeons, but usually in these yellow zones and blue zones, there's always people around the static dungeons. So that's one of the dungeon types in the game. Now we're going to cruise around and search for a different dungeon type. And then here's a group dungeon, right? So this dungeon here, these just spawn randomly. Like this is one of the different portals for a group dungeon. Group dungeons will always be blue. So these are made for 5-man teams. You can solo these again with the right build, but you're not going to get all of it done. Or you can solo the 2-man groups. 2 to 5 people is usually what's expected in a group dungeon. So that's a group dungeon. Now we're looking around for a solo dungeon at this point now, and that is going to be a green portal. So let's go ahead and see if we can find a green portal. I may have to edit this and see what we can find. Here we go. All right. So this is a solo dungeon. You can just go in here and click it, and it's a solo dungeon. The entrance to this will close after 90 seconds. So if you're in like a full loot PvP area, you don't have to worry about someone coming to attack you if you sit there for 90 seconds before you begin. So any green dungeons are solo dungeons, and it's essentially like the little expedition that you have done as a new player whenever you do the little quest line. All right, here is another thing that you can do, which is called the Mist. So this is a Will-o'-the-Wisp, and what it'll do is take you around till there's a portal. The yellow zone mist are knockdown PvP. Anything else is a full loot PvP. So if you like go into a mist in a red zone or whatever, and here you can go into a mist. There's mob camps in here. I want to get out of here real quick. There's mob camps in there. There's lots and lots of good fame in there. You also grind up reputation with the Brazilian city, which we won't. I'm not going to get into that today. That's a topic for a much deeper video. But it helps you to grind a lot of fame, a lot of good fame in the mist. It's also more or less like a 1v1 room. So unless it is a greater mist, there you cannot go in as a group. So you can guarantee that you'll run into solo players. And so that's kind of one of the benefits of the Mist. And all of that is very good fame. There's very good fame in the Mist because of all the mob camps and stuff. There's also good fame now in the open world, dealing with mob camps and mob groups and stuff in the open world, especially if they are glowing. If they're glowing, that means they haven't been killed in a while and they're empowered. Just watch for other people if you're doing this in like a black zone or a red zone, etc., because you can get ganked and get killed. There's another little portal for the Mist. But let's see here. I want to go... And we're going to track down now the last dungeon type that we're going to talk about, which is a corrupted dungeon. So let's go ahead and I'll see you guys when we get there. All right, it took us a minute, but we finally found one. This is a corrupted dungeon. And what these do is you enter into these and you go through a dungeon, just the same as a solo dungeon, except for the theme is more of like it's almost like a Diablo-esque theme, like I don't know, it's like a fiery demon killing sort of theme. But you also run into other people, or there's a chance to run into other people. You don't always run into other players, but there's a chance that you will bump into someone else, or someone will invade your dungeon. So that is a place for 1v1 PvP. There's a lot of different build guides on that, a lot of different builds that are very successful. You can find any number of corrupted dungeon builds online. I would say that one-handed cursed is good for new players, as is a bow. Both can be used with low spec, and both can be used relatively cheap, especially if you're just doing hunter level where it's knocked down. There's 3 levels to that. So there's hunter level, there's stalker level, and there is slayer level. And so a hunter level corrupted is just going to have knockdown PvP. That's all it is. Once you get beaten, you get knocked out. You have to have 800 item power to enter, so that's a little bit better than tier 4. Then if you go and look at stalker level, requires you to have 900 item power, and it is full loot PvP. PvP results in death. You have to be in a black zone or a red zone to enter one of those. And then Slayer level requires you to have 100,000 infamy in corrupted dungeon. You gain infamy for just clearing the dungeons. You also gain infamy by killing other players. And so that's how the corrupted dungeon system works. They're very, very fun content. Easy to do as a solo player. You don't have to have a guild. You don't have to have anything to worry about. You can get those corrupteds done really, really easily. Now, the last thing I was going to touch on as far as like portals and such is the Avalonian roads, but I am not finding any Avalonian roads content. Another thing I want to talk about while I just noticed that, you'll notice on your map, if you're looking at your map, you'll see these little chest icons, right? That is a bank. So if you click here, you can see this is a bank that's in the open world. So what you can do is buy a bank tab here and bank your stuff. So essentially you can go into this red zone next to it and gather whatever, and then run over here and bank your stuff, and then go back and forth, and it's a little bit safer than trying to go it's quicker than trying to go all the way back down. So those are all over the place. Now it looks like that's going to be it for as far as portals and such. There are Avalonian road portals, which I'm not sure why there's none open right now. I was going to explain those, but there's literally not a single Avalonian road portal open anywhere on the map that I'm seeing. So we're going to gloss over those right now. I'll make a different video about the Avalonian roads in a whole separate video. But essentially those are just like a random, so you go through that portal and you enter the Avalonian roads, and then that might close behind you, and you might wind up who knows where on the map, or just all over the place through the Avalonian roads, or you could just stay in the Avalonian roads and travel. And it's just a nice place. It's like a randomized place. There's really good loot in there, good fights in there, but it's more of a group-based thing. And you get to kind of essentially, you can put a guild hideout in there, just all that sort of stuff. So it's really nice, a really cool feature. And I think that's going to just about sum this video up. Not really much else I really want to talk about. If you guys have any questions, feel free to post a comment down below, and I'll do my best to answer it for you. Definitely look towards joining a guild to improve your experience in the game. I do have a guild called Albion Risen. If you want to look us up in the game, maybe if you think that would be a good fit, you're more than welcome to join. We have an active Discord, so do look us up. And yeah, I think that's going to be about it. Oh, I do want to touch on the black zone. So if you look at the map and you go up here, this is the Outlands, right? This is the black zone. So every city has a portal except for Carleon. Every city but Carleon has a portal that takes you to the Outlands. And I'll go ahead and take you to the one at Bridgewatch, and we'll continue talking about them. So those are black zones. That's where guilds can own territory. They can place hideouts. So if we just look here, let's look at this map. You see these are guild hideouts, so you can see where the guild owns a hideout here. So guilds can conquer territories. There's territory battles out there. There's hideout fights. All that sort of stuff happens in the Outlands. So eventually you're going to wind up here in the Outlands doing most of your content. But for the beginner, you're not going to be there very often unless you join a guild and the guild helps you get out there, which my guild will do. But you go to your whatever city, you choose your portal, and it will bind you here. You cannot remove this binding for 7 days. It has a 7-day cooldown. So whatever city you choose to do this in, just keep in mind you're going to be locked there for 7 days unless you're able to travel all the way across. So like here's the Bridgewatch portal. Let's say I want to be portal locked to Martlock. All right, I'm going to have to travel all of these zones to get to the Martlock portal. And keep in mind, this is all full loop PvP. No flagging, no reputation hit, nothing. So you just want to make sure whatever city you choose to bind in, you want to make sure that you're tied to that city. But every little outland city is kind of the same. It has like a marketplace, a bank, all that sort of stuff. So just take note of that. I would recommend if you're going to stick with the game for a while, try and join a good guild. Like I said, I've got a guild. We'd be more than happy to have you. And that's going to be it for today's video. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for more Albion Online content. Like the video. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye-bye.